welcome to the initial AASHTOWare OpenAPI webinar. My name is Joe Brewer. I'm an IT manager with the state of Michigan, supporting the Michigan Department of Transportation. I also volunteer my time as the chair of the AASHTOWare Data Integration Oversight Team. And our main goal has been to oversee the development and implementation of the AASHTOWare OpenAPI. I've been in this role since October of 2021. I have the pleasure of working with several other volunteers from other agencies, as well as AASHTOWare staff and WSP. And WSP is the contractor chosen to help develop the AASHTOWare OpenAPI. The OpenAPI has been in production since July of 2023. Today's webinar is the first of what we hope will be several webinars on this topic. We hope to do the next one in January or February. Today's topic will address APIs that are in production. The January-February webinar will focus on APIs that are under development, and we'll also maybe take a little deeper dive into the technology around it. We appreciate any ideas for future webinar topics. We will be sending out a webinar at the end of this to survey what you thought of this one, and if you have ideas for upcoming webinars. Just a couple housekeeping things. Only presenters will be able to talk. Everyone else, please, if you have questions, use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You can ask questions at any time. We'll monitor those and answer as many as we can during the webinar. If we're unable to answer any questions, we will provide answers as soon as possible after the webinar. What is an API? So just to give you a quick introduction, right? An API is a way for different apps and systems to communicate with each other over the internet. An API defines the rules and formats for exchanging data and information requests. It allows apps to access data and services from different sources and platforms, enables apps to reuse existing code and functionality without reinventing the wheel, facilitates interoperability and integration among different systems, and enhances security and privacy. Why do we need AASHTOWare OpenAPI? Well, we still have some siloed products, limited data connection between the different products. We have limited data connections with other DOT enterprise systems, GIS, design, financial systems. And data integrations are expensive, customized efforts at each DOT. What are the benefits of AASHTOWare OpenAPI? Well, it kind of ties back to what the previous slide, but establish standards for accessing and managing AASHTOWare data and its connections, eliminate some of the traditional barriers by making AASHTOWare an open platform, allows for cheaper and quicker maintenance on data integration, provides the opportunity for low effort implementation. You can leverage existing APIs, build once, use often, and resources available to make use of the system with little to no training. Today's topics we're going to cover, we'll start off with Cedric Bouknight from WSP. He'll give an overview of the API. Then Ty Carlson from Nebraska and Susan Downing-Reed from Virginia will speak about e-ticketing efforts. Then we'll move on to cross-project between Ohio and Kentucky. Janet Treadway and Tina Collins will cover that. And finally, we'll have census data from Wisconsin with David Castleberg. And Adam, I apologize, I did not fix your name, and Adam Bleskasek. So with that, I think I will turn it over to Cedric for the first presentation. So Cedric, it's all yours, sir.
Thank you, Joe. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining our AASHTOWare OpenAPI in Action webinar. I'm Cedric Bouknight, and I serve as the lead architect and technical lead for the implementation of AASHTOWare OpenAPI. I also hold the position of software solutions developer and architect at WSP. Our session today is designed to bridge the gap between technical and non-technical stakeholders, bringing together business leaders, technical teams, and prospective users who are eager to understand or leverage the AASHTOWare OpenAPI. The journey of AASHTOWare OpenAPI is really rooted in the vision to extend the reach of AASHTOWare as a premier transportation technology system, providing a robust and flexible platform that really does foster innovation. This platform not only enhances interoperability, as Joe had mentioned, between diverse systems, but it also empowers agencies and organizations to develop and deploy custom solutions that address their unique and operational challenges. Throughout today's webinar, we'll explore how AASHTOWare OpenAPI is really reshaping the landscape of transportation software. We'll delve into its key scenarios, real-world applications, and the significant benefits that it does bring to the various stakeholders as we discuss some of the actual testimonials. So whether you're here to gain technical understanding, assess business value, or explore some of the integration capabilities, it is our aim to provide a comprehensive overview that meets your needs and describes the system in whole. So again, thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to engaging in an insightful session. Let's dive right into the world of AASHTOWare OpenAPI and discover all of the innovation that it's driving. So as we get deeper in today's presentation, we'll focus on three critical aspects of AASHTOWare OpenAPI. This really does underscore the key topics and subjects around adoption, the related benefits, and then innovation. So as far as adoption, we'll start by exploring the current state of the widespread adoption of AASHTOWare OpenAPI. This segment will highlight how various organizations have embraced the platform, the strategies that they've used to implement it, and the success stories that demonstrate its transformative power. Some of the benefits, we'll next examine these benefits that AASHTOWare OpenAPI brings to the table, from enhancing operational efficiency to enabling seamless integration with existing systems. And we'll also discuss some of the tangible advantages that stakeholders can expect from leveraging the solution. As far as innovation, finally, we'll look at AASHTOWare OpenAPI as it drives innovation. This part will focus on cutting-edge features and capabilities that really do empower organizations to develop custom applications and solutions, thereby fostering a culture of continuous improvement and technology advancement. So for our initial deployment, as Joe had mentioned, AASHTOWare OpenAPI has been up and running in a production capacity for a couple of years. Currently, we have about 18 U.S. transportation agencies currently using the platform in its mission-critical production capabilities. In addition to that, we have facilitated collaborations with commercial organizations where they are developing or extending their service offerings, including AASHTOWare OpenAPI. Every month, every week, we're adding new agencies, and again, we're really looking to get that full adoption. Additionally, an alliance program has been created to help accelerate some of that industry collaboration, and that is a key component of what we're trying to provide on a day-to-day basis. As far as the key benefits, AASHTOWare OpenAPI is really about unlocking your existing AASHTOWare investment through enterprise integration scenarios and a variety of other approaches to leverage the systems that you have in place. As I mentioned, commercial third parties using the standard platform, it makes extending to new scenarios in a commercial context that much easier. So agencies can now more easily work across organizational boundaries. We'll discuss that today as far as project management and exchanging data. And then finally, we've also established a one-stop shop for data resources so that whether you're at a federal level or coordinating as far as state level data, there's a new way to access that. And again, we'll explore some of those details with the testimonials today. So again, fundamentally, you have new tools, new resources, new opportunities to leverage AASHTOWare OpenAPI in-house or through collaboration. Next up, we'll look at the primary goal, where we stand now as part of that AASHTOWare OpenAPI in action. Fundamentally, it's an idea launchpad. Some of the best engagements that we have so far has been a result of ideas that originate organically at the agency level, and then through various levels of cooperation and coordination, we're able to produce new and very extraordinary uses of AASHTOWare OpenAPI in record time that might not have been as possible in the past. So again, just taking a big picture look, whether it's a cloud solution, new mobile app development, extending what's already in place, extending to different solutions, whether it's GIS, financial, or management. AASHTOWare OpenAPI is really that fundamental platform that you can build against quickly and easily. So as part of AASHTOWare OpenAPI, what we have now is just a starting point. We have a ongoing effort to include more capabilities, more applications, more commercial vendors, and extend that so that, again, as we move from today until tomorrow, there will be new additions and it will evolve accordingly. So what's necessary to get started? We'll look at some of the details as far as what was required to produce some of the solutions that we'll discuss today. But fundamentally, we have a developer portal. Once you get into the developer portal, set up your account. Shortly after that, you're activated. You get all the resources that you need to get started. And as part of that, as you become more informed about the platform, there's dedicated support and reference materials to kind of make that a little bit easier. So we've done the initial exploration on how AASHTOWare OpenAPI is really extending its reach and delivering a robust innovation platform. Now it's time to hear firsthand with experiences in using this powerful platform. And to kick it off, we're pleased to showcase experiences from Ty with the Nebraska Department of Transportation and Susan from the Virginia Department of Transportation. Ty and Susan have led successful initiatives using AASHTOWare OpenAPI in their operations, and they'll be sharing some of their unique experiences and usage cases. Let's start off with Ty, who will tell us about Nebraska's journey with AASHTOWare OpenAPI, and over to you, Ty.
All right. Hopefully I covered that slide transition okay for you, Cedric. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to speak about the Hall Hub integration. Or I should say Susan and I are going to talk about the Hall Hub integration. For us, there was a basic need once we started looking at Hall Hub, and that was how do we get our project information from in AASHTOWare project and into the Hall Hub system. The problem, as we saw it, is essentially we would be duplicating data from one system to the other. Duplicating the data isn't necessarily a bad thing, but without the integration, it would require that human being to actually go through and fill all the necessary fields out, whether it's contract level data, line item level data, etc. So allowing the system of record rather to share the data seemed like the obvious thing to do. Now in Nebraska, I'm lazy and I'm kind of selfish. I don't want my staff to spend time working on these things or asking our field staff to do it. So when the opportunity presented itself to use OpenAPI, we jumped on it really quickly. The benefits that we see here are that consistent data between the system, between Hall Hub and AASHTOWare project in this case. Some examples there you can see on my slide are the contract ID, project ID, federal project number, location, description. But beyond just the attributes, the core attributes about our project, we also saw benefits in syncing our contract authority records as well. Those records, we depend on AASHTOWare project and that contract authority setup to not so much control or restrict access, but to really show responsibility. And we wanted to save the effort on our field staff from having to redeploy that responsibility assignment in the Hall Hub system, because we already had it in AASHTOWare project. We thought just copying it over would be an obvious thing to do, saving them the effort. And the last little bullet I have there is kind of a little bit of a hint toward a later slide, I suppose, but it is part of our basic contract data that is syncing across, and that's the line item information. And that will lead into the reconciling functionality, which I'll talk about here in a slide or so. So, kind of additional thoughts here on the current state, which is the current integration with Haul Hub. The biggest challenge that we saw getting this going was something that Cedric just talked about with his slides as far as getting your agency connected to OpenAPI. For us specifically, that was making our data available in somewhat of a public manner so it could be easily connected to the OpenAPI site. For Nebraska, we were actually part of some of the early pilot efforts with, the early iterations of OpenAPI. So that was something that we thankfully had worked out rather quickly. Or we had worked out, I guess, years ago, maybe. But the next big thing for us, in terms of, I don't know that I'd say it was a challenge, but it was something that we had familiarity with, and that is the AASHTOWare project authorization model service. We've gained a pretty good understanding of that service in Nebraska over using it for a number of years just internally. So we used our understanding of how that service works, worked with Cedric and the OpenAPI and got that connection made. Then we were able to very quickly set up the access for Haul Hub. We knew what data we wanted them to have, right? The contract attributes, contract authority. So it was just a matter of finding those things and enabling that access for Haul Hub to be able to query that information essentially through the OpenAPI. Nothing that we've done is unique to Nebraska. There's no customization that we did to the AASHTOWare project system. Everything is very repeatable by any agency. Susan, I don't know if you'd want to speak to what you guys were able to do with some of our notes, basically.
Yeah, so I'm gonna, just keeping with the philosophy of develop once and use often, VDOT was able to leverage actually what Nebraska originally did for e-tickets specifically. Yet because the data is shared at a high level and it's shared at the entity level, VDOT was able to determine exactly what data we wanted to share with Haul Hub for our e-tickets, which actually could have been very different from what Ty wanted to share. An example of this for us is lot number. That was something that VDOT really wanted to be able to pass back and forth. So lot number is something that we're, prepared to pass back and forth with our contractors, suppliers. Another example that VDOT did was also able to share data on active projects that were asphalt only. So if you do have an interest in being able to target what you're looking to do, the API also enables that as well, as long as your vendor is amenable to it.
Yeah, that's perfect, right? We set up things that were aligned for us, shared our findings with others, and they've been able to do exactly those types of things as well as other scenarios too. So, for us selfishly in Nebraska, speaking to my last bullet point there, for us, since we were able to very quickly establish this connection between Haul Hub, it actually gave us the opportunity of more time to spend looking at those advanced features in Haul Hub sooner, such as the work zones. And anybody who's working with or familiar with the national efforts for active work zones as it relates to safety is a pretty hot button topic right now, pretty big to do, pretty good thing to get set up rather. So we got this current, contract data. The current state integration is out there and working. Many agencies have implemented their version of it. But I wanted to take a second and actually talk about a future state thing. Now, I know this is a bit of a tease here, and Joe alluded to this in one of his early points, that a future webinar will probably speak more directly to future developments with OpenAPI. But this one is probably not that far off, honestly, to being available. So with all that contract data that we just talked about syncing with the current integration, Nebraska and Haul Hub and Susan with Virginia, we've been talking about and testing a integration that would sync across for a daily work report, specifically the quantities that have been reconciled across one or multiple material tickets. and how that would pertain over to the line item on your daily work report item posting. So for us, we've actually gotten through some of the initial testing with that. Hall Hub developers have determined what they needed to see and from the AASHTOWare project side of it, and they're now just currently working on their end of it within Hall Hub. I don't have an exact timeline to offer you guys. Like, you know, you'll see it in January or February, but I do believe it's you know, on the slate for 2025. So it might be something that gets presented at the next webinar, or for those agencies that are Hall Hub agencies, you may get to use it sooner. So
VDOT's, I'm going to jump in here, Ty.
go ahead.
So VDOT's actually going to start testing using our own specific test case, which aligns with the VDOT processes and AWP functionality right at the tail end of November. So it's one of the perks if you get in on the ground floor that you can actually bring your own processes and actually kind of help influence the development of, you know, some of these open APIs. So I highly encourage everyone to really get involved.
Yeah. Yeah, so the last couple bullets, or the middle couple bullets here that I have, very familiar to you based on the previous contract data slide. We view this as saving the duplicate data entry, reducing the opportunities or chances for mistakes, and then something that I value, and I've turned into something of a data nerd since I came in from the field years ago. But I appreciate having all of this data readily available and linked via the daily work report when this happens. It'll allow for some interesting analysis to be performed within the agency. I don't have any specific scenarios of one on this case, but for a potential future state that I see for an integration would be very similar to the daily work reports and pertain to the sample record side of it. A lot of the same benefits can be seen here, right? Saving the duplicate data entry, but the specific thing that I was referring to in terms of data analysis is and relates to our pavement designer folks and analyzing the, that placement information and the material property data, really help them make, their decisions for future projects about what things they may need to address or do differently when it comes to, say, concrete properties or something like that. Now, like I said, this is also a future state. This one hasn't been tested. This will probably be better deserved or better placed on a future webinar. But the idea here is sound, and Hall Hub in Nebraska, I should say, rather. We've talked very high level about this, and one of the big hurdles that we see, if not the only one, is really just data alignment. Aligning the material suppliers that they have within their system with, say, a source or a facility if within the AASHTOWare project system. Yeah, I don't know, Susan. You mentioned your lot numbers and things before, so this might be one of the places where some of that information crosses over for Virginia as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be really exciting as we move forward because we will be able to do a lot of data and analysis.
Yeah. Yep. So for just kind of a last thing here, again, another tease on a potential future state. I mentioned the work zones and the active work zones for your safety feeds, for those who are familiar with that. This is another opportunity that we see as a potential integration. Taking those project locations that an agency may have within AASHTOWare project. I can speak for Nebraska. We have those locations, or at least somewhat located, for each project. Being able to publish those within the Hall Hub system from the data that we already have would lead to, again, a time savings on our field staff or on our office staff, and not having to create all of these work zones if they've already been created in another system.
It might even be an opportunity to actually integrate with some social media if your state actually has social media. So that's one of the things that we're looking at as well.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, this is, these are the last couple slides here mainly about future state integrations, but the current state integration with the contract data is really where it's at. I guess I don't, this is basically my last slide, but Susan, do you have anything else that you'd want to offer to the attendees?
Nope. I'd just say if you have questions, please reach out. We've got lots of answers. Sometimes it seems a little scary to get started, but once you actually do get started and you've created your endpoints and you've made all your connections, it's actually pretty simple to move it forward. So don't be afraid. Just jump in. It's actually pretty good, and there are those of us around who can help out as best as we can. Great job, Ty. Thanks.
Yeah, and on the note of kind of helping out, let's go ahead and transition over to Janet and Tina over in Ohio, and they can share their experience with their integration with Kentucky.
Thank you, Ty, and thank you, Susan. Like the lead in, I'm going to go ahead and share. Tina and I are working together in our lovely aviation building today, so you may be able to see the fact that we look like we're flying a plane, but we're really not. So one of the aspects that our projects has taken on in relation to the OpenAPI is the fact that we've already seen from a perspective of contractors getting into the OpenAPI through AASHTOWare. We're also going to talk about other vendors and outside resources getting in, but one of the areas that we saw to be very beneficial was the fact that Ohio and Kentucky have a joint bridge project. This project is in the realm of $3.4 billion. It is a Brent Spence Bridge, or BSB, a lot easier for me, project over the Ohio River. That project kicked off in 2023, very early for the commitment and the design side, and had a lot of public engagement and involvement and oversight. Because of that, we knew that we needed to make sure that our records were meeting FHWA standards and everything else that was going on. And we also needed to make sure that as we were presenting the data to the Federal Highway and to each of our leaderships, that it was a connected and unified piece. Because of that, each project side for AASHTOWare project construction materials will have its own instance. Ohio will have their instance, Kentucky will have theirs. And that is allowing us both to keep our own inspection specifications, requirements, and any other contractual documentation that we need to keep in-house for management going forward. However, Ohio is the single source of record for the FHWA reporting for the compliance needs. And as such, the FHWA has an expectation from us for contract compliance and prompt payment and payroll submittals. So we'll be doing those as well. At this point, all vendors have been loaded into the Ohio DOT instance so that we can make sure that as we go forward, the Kentucky side can pull theirs, but anything that we need to pull from our side, we'll be able to gather quickly and make sure that they are committed matches. All subcontracts for the Brent Spence Bridge contract have also been loaded for capture for both agencies. And as I mentioned, we are in the design portion right now. So even our design subs have been loaded in so that we can make sure that we are monitoring prompt payment and other areas of compliance. ODOT is going to be executing the progressive payment estimates based on independent progressive work from both sides. So we will conduct and have an estimate prepared with our items of work, and then Kentucky will provide theirs as well. Once that's done, one unified estimate will be created and then sent through for prompt payment efforts. Ohio does use Signet application for prompt payment affirmations, and because we have all of the vendors in our instance, and we will be generating the estimates, we'll be able to utilize that as well. Both Ohio and Kentucky will independently enter their daily work reports in their own, as I was mentioning, due to their inspection requirements and independent spec and material requirements. Then the OpenAPI will capture that information for payroll. The areas that we found to be necessary in order to capture the payroll requirements is once Kentucky enters their daily work report in their instance, the API will gather the information from their DWR and pass it into essentially our instance, but capturing their user ID so that we can make sure and monitor each independent DWR. It'll also bring information over from the general tab the contractor on site, and the contractor's personnel. Tina?
Thanks, Shannon. Okay, I think Ty and those guys prior to us did a really good job of explaining all the benefits, and I'm, not going to say the exact same things that they did, but one of the biggest things I think for me, someone who spent their entire time here trying to streamline processes and create easier interfaces for the contractors. This makes it so we can quickly get up to speed and break down the silos so we can focus on the real nitty gritty and get, solutions out faster. So the fact that it's simple and consistent and repeatable is massively, like, it's huge to be able to just cut to the chase and get the work done. So we expect to continue to utilize it for as many areas as we can see fit and streamline as many things as we can and scale up to as far as we need to go to get things done that we want to accomplish. This is a good summary slide, just on how agencies can connect and exchange data. Each agency completely controls their own system. There's no real requirement. It's kind of like an agreement when you go into it. So neither agency has to agree to let the other modify their data. Making it simple and having straightforward conventions are the essential glue, which enables the integration. And the AASHTOWare OpenAPI is the connector and the orchestrator. And again, to reiterate, it's just the approach is repeatable, it's simple, it's easy to scale, and which makes it kind of catapult you to getting the real work done. And then applicable to mega projects, which is exactly what we're jumping into or jumped into, and can involve multiple states. Here's just a graphical representation of like how our setup is. So Kentucky has their own instance. We both have the same project with the same contract ID and AASHTOWare project. And then Ohio has the database of record. So we're pulling data into, which Janet already outlined. But this is a good succinct example, thanks Cedric, of how the data is flowing. And then this is just a little bit more detailed example of the data flow. So again, like I mentioned, we have the cross-reference project in both systems. And then reading the project information, checking the modified dates to determine which data needs to be pulled over. And we just keep looping through that same process. And that pretty much lays out how we have set up our instance.
Thank you. So as you can see right now, we talked to contractors, we talked between agency to agency, and David and Adam from Wisconsin are going to be able to show you how the OpenAPI has allowed us to speak to the Census Bureau. David?
All right. Okay, well, thank you, Janet and Tina, for that example of using OpenAPI to connect two agencies. WSDOT's really watching this project of yours to see if we can do something similar with Minnesota DOT on a $1.8 billion bridge project between Duluth, Minnesota and Superior, Wisconsin. Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Castleberg. I'm the supervisor of the Design and Construction Technologies and Automation section within the Division of Transportation System Development at the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. I'm also the AASHTOWare Project Business Administrator for WSDOT. Along with me today is Adam Blaskotchek on my staff. Adam is one of our AASHTOWare Project System Administrators. This afternoon, we'd like to talk to you about our experience using AASHTOWare OpenAPI and connecting with the U.S. Census Bureau. The Census Bureau reports out on several federal economic indicators on a monthly basis. One of these is the construction spending indicator, located on the listed website. Part of their monthly process for producing this indicator currently involves having staff manually log into the WISDOT website to gain this information. They similarly access data on other state DOT sites to obtain spending information related to existing construction contracts. They're looking to streamline this process and transition away from the manual process to a more automated process using automated scripts that could scrape the necessary information from the DOT websites. Here's an example of the detailed information that they report out on. Here we are looking at the total for public construction costs in the transportation area. The data shown here is from August to April of 2024. Some DOT's websites have no issues with the scraping approach, but since the WISDOT website requires a log on, the Census Bureau reached out to us to determine the best approach and make sure that they proceed in a way that doesn't conflict with our policies and standards. They wanted our help to figure out a way to automate the retrieval of data from within WISDOT's Construction Contract Payment Viewing System, or CCPVS. This particular website requires a logon using the Wisconsin Web Access Management System, or WAMS. The logon requirement was creating a roadblock for the web scraping application. The information they were trying to gather has related contracts and contract payments to supply to the indicator. The goal was to pull data from the contract payment viewing system, similar to what they were already grabbing in a manual manner. I had recently just attended the AASHTOWare Innovation Summit that was highlighting the AASHTOWare Alliance Program and OpenAPI. I thought this might be a perfect opportunity to use the OpenAPI process to access this data directly from our AASHTOWare project database. Using the OpenAPI connection to our AASHTOWare project database would be much simpler and more direct than accessing our older construction contract payment viewing system view of the database. Unlike the other OpenAPI projects highlighted here today, this effort does not streamline processes or create efficiencies for the department or our staff. Rather, it is helping another public agency. This slide illustrates the timeline for the project with the U.S. Census Bureau. The project was spread out over a good share of this year. However, the time for creating the actual connections and testing was only in the last 3 months. The initial contact with them was back in May. In June, we worked with the AASHTOWare project hosting team to determine if we could do this with outside public agency. From there, we met with Cedric at WSP to help define the required fields and establish the connections for the test environment. From August through September, Adam was working with an individual with the U.S. Census Bureau to refine the connections and begin testing. In the last month, we were able to move from the testing environment to establish the connection in the production environment. This has allowed them to get the most current data to post on their website. All right, for the next 2 slides, I'm going to have Adam go through the specific process that he went through to establish the connection for the U.S. Census Bureau to get an OpenAPI connection to our database. Adam?
Yes, hello everybody. So I'm just going to kind of go through some of the steps that Wisconsin took as an overview to get that connection made between the Census Bureau and Wisconsin's AWP data. So the first thing that we did was we worked with WSP to get registered in the developer portal, and we were able to send over our AMS URLs, and then they in turn send back your OpenAPI endpoints. So that made it really quick. A plug out there for the hosting. If you're an agency that's already hosted, that's a very simple thing. Everything's already set up. Every agency has an AMS site already, but being hosted, ours was all publicly available. We didn't have any issues with networking or firewalls, nothing like that. So once the URLs were configured and set up, it was pretty much connect and go. It went really smooth and fast. I was surprised how easy it was to get connected and to start testing right away. So that first step in there is getting registered in the developer portal, working with WSP to get your links, URLs, and endpoints set up. And then from there, you're going to request a temporary subscription key, also through WSP. And what you can do is you can ask that subscription key be used and shared with the Census Bureau as a temporary key. So that allows the agency and the Census Bureau to connect for testing purposes, for developing some of the next steps. And step 2 would be to create a role. So all of the permissions are role-based in the integration. So that role we set up as US Census. I highly recommend that if your agency is interested in sharing data with the US Census, that you also just set up the role as in the role name being US Census. That way that it's easily reusable for the Census Bureau with all of their scripts. Everything's been configured with that role name and that integration name. So on the smaller right-hand side of the screen, under 2, it lists A through S, which are some of the specific entities that we have given permission to allow them to get data. And basically it boils down to, generic kind of contract and project information, location, IDs, contract time, that kind of stuff, and then all of the payment estimate data. So basically on your payment estimate report where it shows the previous, the current, and the total payment estimate lines, that's the data that we're sharing with them so that they're able to put that into their system and bring it together for the data that they need to report out on. So the third step down there is to create an integration account within AASHTOWare project. So after you create the role, you create the integration, name it US Census, and what you'll need to do is you tie the US Census role to the integration. You can create an integration secret key that's done right in AASHTOWare project, and then you share the integration name, the role name, and the secret key that you created in your environment with the US Census along with that temporary subscription key. Once they have that data, once they have that information, they have what they need to start testing the connection and getting data from your agency. I used Postman to kind of set up this connection and kind of see how it's working before or along with the Census Bureau, seeing what data is available. So that was kind of a nice graphical representation of what they were seeing also. And then the US Census Bureau developed some Python scripts that would go in and they would iterate through the data, grab all the data they needed from all of the active contracts that they were looking for, and then they would put that all together into a spreadsheet. They sent it back to me for validation. And then once we had everything validated, we went ahead and we asked WSP to create a permanent subscription key. So now that this permanent subscription key is created for the US Census Bureau, any of the other agencies are able to share it. So if you would like to move forward in working with the census, you can get a temporary subscription key, get all of your integrations and roles and everything connected and tested. And then once you're ready to move into a production type instance, then what you would do is you would request WSP to assign your agency to the permanent subscription key that US Census already has. That would allow them, US Census, to access your data in a production environment. And you schedule a go live with Census and you go from there. But to kind of go back, being a hosted agency, this went very easily, very smoothly. And we had installed several integrations. US Census is one of them. We also did configure and we are sharing data with HallHub. That's one of our other integrations that we're working on. And again, the setup went very easily. Since some of the other agencies have already been working with HallHub, we kind of had a fact sheet and we go through and just share the data out.
All right, thank you, Adam. Now that we've tested and put this into production, as Adam pointed out, this process is repeatable. We've recently started working with the Minnesota DOT and soon Nebraska DOT to help the U.S. Census Bureau connect to their instance of AASHTOWare project. With that, I'll hand it back over to Joe Brewer.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, David. Thanks to all the presenters. Appreciate all your information. Thank you to the folks that have been asking questions. Thanks to Cedric for trying to answer as many as he can. There are a few open questions. I'll go ahead and try and answer those now, and we'll try and answer as many as we can. I would like to take just a few minutes at the end to talk about what's coming up next, some improvement activities, and showing you some links to the dev portal. So let's try and go through some of the questions here. There's a question, any user experience regarding AASHTOWare Bridge Management, BRM, integration with Bentley AssetWise inspection? I am not aware of that. I will preface that by saying I'm not involved with BRM as much as I am with some of the other products. So if anybody else on the call is aware of anything, Ben, I see your hands up. Go ahead.
Thanks, Joe. Yes, I'm aware of a couple states doing this. If that person could please send me an email, I'd be more than happy to introduce you to folks who are working in that space and can help you out.
Thank you, Ben. The second part of the question was, is there any training on how to build an API integration? I don't think there is right now, and Cedric helped me out, and maybe Yosef. I believe we're looking at, on the developer portal, providing short videos on select topics. And I can't remember, guys, were we going to do that in the portal, or is that going to be in the forum? Anything you guys might add to that, I appreciate.
Sure. So some of those technical work session snacks, for lack of a better word, those will be included in the developer portal. As we complete those and compile those, basically we'll have a library of quick references and how-tos. Additionally, if you are part of one of the licensed agencies, organizations, then you can simply ask for a technical session, and we'll set up a meeting, have a little bit of information about what you're trying to accomplish, and down to creating code or going through the step-by-step process to incorporate different applications. Set up a time, usually takes about an hour, and we can go through that at an engineering level in detail. We prefer to record those so that whatever we do in those sessions, we also publish to the developer portal, so that, again, we have that compilation of references.
Thank you, Cedric. I don't see any other questions in the question and answer right now. Thank you, guys, for your questions. Go ahead and put some more in. If you have more, put them in. If we don't get a chance to answer them in the next few minutes, we'll make sure we reach out to you outside of the webinar. So again, the last couple minutes here, I wanted to show you some of the sites that are available. And so I'm going to try and share my screen. Hopefully you are seeing AASHTOWare OpenAPI, how to learn more. We will make these links available to you, whether we share the PowerPoint presentations or some other way, shape, or form. We'll make these available to you. And I'm just gonna go click on these here and just show you a little bit about them. Before I go over there, we talked about upcoming webinars. We are looking at doing one in January or February. We're going to focus on future uses of AASHTOWare OpenAPI, things that we know are in process of being developed. But like I said earlier, we are looking for any input or feedback from you guys. So there will be a survey we do here at some point asking for your feedback. And then finally, there is AASHTOWare Connect. Just put a plug in for that. Was referred to as the Innovation Summit last April, I believe, in Chattanooga, and this year it's been kind of rebranded to AASHTOWare Connect, where there will be a lot of information about the Open API. There'll be a specific track in that in those meetings to go over AASHTOWare Open API. So with that, I'm going to check. Okay, we're still good on questions. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Apologize for the delay. Okay. So hopefully you are seeing an AASHTOWare screen. And this is the AASHTOWare Open API homepage. So a lot of good information out here. So again, we'll make sure we get those links to you. You can get information on how to get a license. If you click here on resources, it actually is going to take you over to the developers portal. And again, we will get you links to that. Maybe the most important thing for people starting out is that button right there. If you get in here and you're having trouble, you don't know where to go, this is a good place. Drop a note in here, and I believe Cedric is monitoring that, and he will reply back to you as soon as possible. Cedric, let me know if I'm telling anything that's not true.
100% correct.
All right. There was a question in the questions about, how, as an agency, what do I do?
So I think we may have lost Joe, or maybe he froze. So some of the items that we were showing was basically from the developer portal. And in the developer portal, there are support options, general information, and also the steps that are necessary to get up and running. So simply following that, once you have your account, simply going through the developer portal is your starting point to access everything that you need or get the help to take it a little bit further.
One of the things I did want to identify that in the chat, there was a question regarding AASHTOWare Asset Tracker. The Asset Tracker application is currently under development. We meet every 2 weeks to go through that. The expectation is that will be delivered June of next year, and then would be delivered as a tool within the AASHTOWare project suite.
Janet, I think as we get ready to wrap up here, one of the other items to definitely highlight, especially with the questions that came in through today's webinar, much of the capabilities and direction and steering, it is really collaborative. So good ideas, requests, anything that you can kind of come up with as far as your individual needs or the needs of your agency, it's all fair game. So again, just as we start off and we continue, we are here to support the evolution of the platform, and that includes commercial capabilities, integration capabilities, and then looking back at the census scenario, as a result of what was done initially, even though it took a little while to get up and running, hopefully faster than what it would have taken normally. Now that that's done, that census integration capability is applicable to every agency participating on the platform. So again, this is really driven by the community and stakeholders and users. So as those ideas come about, we really do want to foster that and help use that to direct the features and services that become available.
Thank you, Cedric. Apparently I got muted somehow, so I don't know how much of what I was saying was not heard. But I was talking, I think, a little bit about improvements. We are working on trying to make the portal easier to use and get in and use. We're working on that. There is some training that we're working on to get some short training videos available on the portal on different topics. And we also are looking at getting a forum on the dev portal for folks to ask questions and trade information. So with that, again, I thank everybody for your attendance. I thank all the presenters. Again, there'll be a survey coming out. We look forward to your feedback and look forward to your attendance at one of our future webinars. So thanks all, appreciate it.